sit down and on a napkin and draw. Figure, I don't know if some of you guys were here for my last night talking, but I talked about not lingering on desolate ground. Well, every opportunity you guys get to go hear somebody speak or sit down and on a napkin and draw stuff is important, because it either gives you a better picture of what you would like to do, or it gives you a reference file for things that you might be able to do with other types of players later. And the only thing I caution all of you guys is this, is that you learn to balance your life a little bit. Too many times, even as head coaches, they try to, they try to tell you, well, you need to be here from 6 in the morning, you need to work till midnight, and then you got to be back here at 6 in the morning. I mean, and what you find out you're doing is you do the same thing even in the off season. You work hard, you teach all day, you talk about football, you watch film, you run your kids through the off season program, and the next thing you know, you're going out and clinicking with the guys on Thursday night, and you're not coming home till late, or Friday night, not coming home till late, so you end up neglecting your family to a certain degree, and those things can happen to you. And what I'm saying, I'm just cautioning is this, is that, hey, these things are great. Make sure you don't neglect your family, because in the end, that's what's important. Okay. I've told Coach Saban a couple of times. He likes to work hard and go long hours. I said, hey, look, I can get this stuff done at home. I just leave. And he has no problem with it, because I always get my stuff done. But part of the reason guys do those things, they're insecure about things getting done, and they don't realize that we're all adults, we're all capable of getting those things done. And I'm just, letting you guys know that your family's important to you. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're trying to decide how to divvy up your time. Okay, we're going to talk about tight ends here. Incorporation tight ends in the passing game. Now let me just say this. The problem with most of our tight ends is they can't run fast enough to help us the way we need to in the passing game. And oftentimes what happens to us is you get a tight end who can't quite run fast enough. You have to do things that he can do. One of the first things about talking about tight ends is releases. If a tight end, the guy has a hard time, he doesn't have to be a fast guy, but if he has a hard time getting releases, then you ought to move him inside to the next spot, right tackle or that. Because, it's okay if he runs a 5.2. Really, it's okay if he runs a 5.2. But if he's not nifty enough to get a good release, then it's going to destroy your passing game, because most of the passing game is centered around spacing and combination, running off of another guy, combination type of spacing, okay? So you need to be able to affect those things, at least initially, quickly. And most, you know, we're talking about 20 yards. A guy runs 5.2, a guy runs 4.9, you know, there's not a whole lot of difference. If you just ran them, there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, you're talking about a yard, okay? So in that, with that thought in mind, just because he runs a 5.2 does not eliminate him from being a tight end. What eliminates him from being a tight end is the niftiness at the line of scrimmage. Okay, types of releases. Obviously, we have 3 types of releases that we use. An inside, an outside, and a force release. Now, a force release is usually for those guys, and I'll have to demonstrate some of this, but force release is usually for those guys who have some trouble, but have some power, okay? And what we basically do with those guys on a force release is we actually center a guy up. We center right through him and butt him, and then make an inside or outside release off of it. All right, but basically how we do most inside or outside releases is just with a jab hint and a low shoulder move. Don't ever get your tight ends in high shoulder moves. Now, let me ask, why don't you come on up here and let me. Your tight ends, when your tight ends, if I'm a tight end right here, okay, and I got to take an outside release, the worst thing that can happen to me is and we tell our guys, hey, if you're worried about affecting a good outside release, and we want them to, what we call is stick the defender. Well, he sticks the defender with the opposite foot, so we want them to do like, you know, like this, because they always try and put their hands up. And we're going to use the outside hand to slap, and we're going to use a low shoulder. We've gotten away from using a high shoulder move like this. The reason why is because some of them get ridden just like in pass pro, and I mean they get spaced so far out that the spacing's ruined. And spacing is critical in your passing game, absolutely critical that you have proper spacing. Because if all of a sudden you got 2 guys running the same area, then the quarterback can't get the right read, okay? So what we basically tell him to do is he's in his stance right here. We tell him to use his head too a little bit. But he's going to jab his head inside like this, and he'll use like a punch move and a low shoulder press move up, out. And now what we want to do is once he gets to this point is we want him to press up the field, especially if that's what we're trying to do, get a vertical release, okay? Now, sometimes on a vertical release, this guy gets almost to that point. He's got the option to take an inside release now. Because when he gets to that point, we don't want him trying to get outside, because this guy's got him by leverage. So we're going to hit the inside right here, the outside now. We're going to hit it, jab it, stick it, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to take it off shoulder form and try to slap and rip through it and rip it up the field. Keeping a low shoulder here, okay? So actually, a lot of times it looks like this, okay? We want a low shoulder. He wants to try to get as low as he can. The higher the shoulder, the more problems you're going to get. And the reason why is he's the tight end, stepping out on me. If his shoulders are high, I got a lot of hand space to put here. The shoulders are low. It's harder to get control of that. So if you just teach him to stay low shoulders, don't give your numbers. Don't let the defender see those numbers right away. The more they see the numbers, the more hand contact you're going to get, and the more expansion you get. Okay. Now that's inside and outside release, and they're the exact same. They're the exact same. And you know what? He can be conscious of this. It will help him out.
Is it based on where he's covering you, or is it based on your pattern, whether he's going to be an inside or outside release?
Well, it's based on both. It's based on both. Sometimes we absolutely give him the option to do whatever. Other times we say, no, you have to take an inside release. So he'll start an inside release like this, and if the guy jumps in his way, he'll try to, but he's still trying to get through, right? Okay, now, the next thing is this. This is for guys who got a little power, because this is unexpected. And we got one wide wide receiver, Plexico Burris, is probably going to be like Randy Moss. I mean, he's 6'6", he's 230 pounds, he runs a 4.6, he's got a 38.5-inch vertical jump, okay? And he's got really good hands. He's a pain in the ass to coach, because he knows he's a talented guy. But when we tell him to do releases because he's so tall sometimes, this is really funny how we were doing this with the tight end sometimes, and all of a sudden we started letting him do it. We were telling him, hey, look, you got to get your low shoulders. You go like this, and you're so high. Get your shoulders down here a little bit where they can't, just. But the point is, he's so tall. These guys he's playing against are 5'9", 5'10" at best. He said, why don't you just run them over? So that's what we're doing. We let him. Hey, he just comes off right here, dips, butts him, gets him, like this, and then does it. And he can go high or low because he's got the guy going back. He just use a quick drive block and then go. Sometimes, and the best thing is, if you have the option out there at wide receiver to do any of those things, that makes you a better wide receiver, gives you good releases. If you can motion a guy, you can inside release, outside release, and butt release. Then those are the now tight end. Back to tight end. We're letting some of our tight ends who are a little thicker, or 250-pound tight ends, center up a guy, because we originally thought we could not get off the release this way. We get tied up too much. But what we're finding out is the guys, you startle him loose initially on the block, and then as you punch one way or the other, either outside or inside with low shoulder, you get a pretty good release. Because he doesn't anticipate, he anticipates your draw, or you're trying to run block or something, so he's not trying to put his hands on you so much that he's riding you on the release. He all of a sudden, sometimes when he does, he actually helps you by throwing you a little bit, okay? So it's a butt release, all right? Just butt through him, boom, one step, buzz the feet, and then away you go. And the big thing, that's good. Big thing is to use your hands. Use your hands. Too many guys are not using their hand. You have the effect. You can really strike it's just like my offensive tackles. When I tell them that we're running naked right here, and that 5 technique step with us, we take that off shoulder forearm, boom, and we bang them right in there. It's amazing. As long as you get them leaning a little bit one way or the other. That's right. When you step this way and he leans this way, as long as you got him leaning, you can affect him to step another step outside, which gives you that nice release that you want up the field. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions on releases? The other thing is expand your split. Expand your split. That helps too because you get more air. But when you expand your split a little time, sometimes as you're helping the defense know what kind of play you're running too. So there's advantage and disadvantage to expanding your split.
What's your normal split?
Our normal split is 3 feet. 3 feet. And we'll cut it down to 2 sometimes on certain plays in one game, but it's normally 3. It actually starts with 2 as a standard split, but anytime we run man schemes, our theory is man schemes open up your splits. So for when we're doing run game, our man schemes we try to open up the splits, and our zone schemes we close down the splits. So zone schemes are going to be 2 foot to 1 foot splits. Man schemes are going to be 3 foot splits, and then pass game will be 2 to 3 foot split based on what he thinks he's getting to a little bit. Okay, and he can also go out a little bit to 5 foot split if he needs to, because there are some kinds of plays that are very important. When you go drop back and you're trying to get a tight end in the vertical, it's not good. It's not good when the tight end looks like this. We're trying to run 4 verticals here, and we like to run this in the red zone. Okay? All right, the reason we like it in the red zone is because if we get any kind of zone coverage, then basically we can read either inside receiver to outside receiver or both inside receivers. If it's a 3D, we read the inside receivers. If it's a 2D, we read one inside to an outside receiver. Okay? And we usually take it to the best guy. So if he can threaten the fastest, so if you saw us, and you saw a 2D coverage right here, then we're probably gonna take it to the best guy, which is here. All right, initially, that's who, so it'll be it'll be the reed this side. If it's a 3 deep coverage, then it's gonna be one of these two guys right here. These guys are what I call entertainers on 3 deep coverage. They just entertain the outside third. We're gonna work the middle third guy. Okay. All right, now this is important because here's what you don't want it to look like approximately 3 seconds down the road. That's not what you want it to look like. Because if it's 3 deep, you're not helping yourself. You didn't help yourself at all. So the release is vitally important, especially on vertical release, that he gets himself vertical. And the worst thing that can happen to him is this. This is worse than that. Because when he's doing this, he's not affecting the guy he needs to affect. So basically, when we talk to the players all the time is, they have to understand the concept. The concept on 4 verticals is this. We're affecting deep coverage, get deep as quickly as possible. We are affecting deep coverage, so get deep as quickly as possible. Spacing is very critical too, because you can't have that kind of stuff, otherwise one guy can cover both. You understand? So what we basically tell these guys is this. And these guys are hash players, basically, is what they are. They do everything off the hash. And what they're really trying to do is run what we call a look route. They're trying to get themselves outside, pin outside, run a look route, and get off the inside coverage. And we're looking to throw in these zones right here. Now the tight end, like I said, the most critical part of it, he doesn't need to be a fast burner on this play. He doesn't need to be hey, if he's 4'6", well, you got a big advantage. Because, like I say, hey, the faster he can affect that deep coverage, the better. But what he has to be able to do is get a what? Good release. If he gets a shitty release, you got no play. So when you look at it, you're trying to run 4 verticals, you look at this, that tight end can't get a good release, then you're better putting another receiver in there, right? So that's how you should evaluate that. Evaluate based on if he can get a good release. You don't have to evaluate it based on whether he's fast enough, because now, if he's a 5'5" guy, then, like I said, hey, we need to move that guy in. All right? Any got any questions? Yeah.
When you're running the 4 verticals, say the ball's in the left hash, you tight end,
Ball's the left hash?
ball's in the left hash, you talk about spacing.
Right.
Do you actually tell him to try and get to that inside landmark on the other side, to try and reach that hash mark on the other side?
How about him?
No, the tight end.
Yeah. Here's what we tell him. We tell him to aim for it. Initially aim for it, and now he'll probably end up on the inside of that hash about 2 yards, and he will aim for it and end up on the outside of the hash a little bit, about 2 yards. So that's how it ends up happening. In other words, we adjust just a little bit. We don't try to tell these guys to get. They have to adjust with the ball. So when the ball's right in the middle, the hash mark is really ideal because they can almost run through the hashes and bend in just slightly. Okay. When the ball is off the hash, what we don't want this guy to do is get what? This way, because the longer he gets that way, the worse we're not affecting the coverage the way we want. So we tell him to head it at an angle like this. He's going to head it at an angle, so it might be out there like that, so he might go like this, and he might be a little bit inside that hash, okay? But we tell him, hey, the idea is, as long as he knows, and that's a good question, because as long as he knows that he has to affect the deep coverage, that's what we tell him all the time. Hey, who are you affecting here? If you're running flat, you're affecting flat coverage. We want you to run vertical. Now, there's a question of what's vertical and what's flat according to where my landmark is to get the proper spacing. And spacing is critical. So therefore, and you said left hash, how would we see this formation? How would we see that formation? Would we see this kind of field? You'll never see that guy field for us, ever. Not when we're running 4 verticals. It'll be just like this. Why? Because he's closer now to the hash. It's not split, he's a little closer to the hash. And he can adjust his split to however he needs to adjust it. You know what I'm saying?
You run 4 verticals on double tight.
Yes, we do. But like it more from the middle of the field than we do from the hash. So if we're on the hash, we're probably going to get spread formation. If we're in the middle of the field, we like that. That's a really great play action. Really one of the ideal play action 4 verticals is with 2 tights, 2 wides, middle of the field, 2 tight ends. You know what I'm saying? So I mean that's an ideal. That's an ideal play action pass, and we will do that quite a bit actually. Okay. All right. Now, like I mentioned last night, some of you guys weren't in my deal last night, but everything, your players should learn everything in this way. They should learn everything in what I call concept form, okay? So, the concept is vertical, so we're going to what? And everybody's got to know that. Everybody's got to know. The only guy that works in the underneath coverage when you run verticals is your backs. We normally give them what we call option rounds. So just running an option round. But your concept is vertical, and the idea of the concept is effective deep coverage. And as long as they know that, see, I think the biggest problem with most guys learning is, you tell them, hey, you're supposed to run this route, but they don't really understand why they're doing it. They don't understand why they're actually doing it. And they have to understand that we can't have that receiver at level 1, this receiver here at level 1, and that receiver right there at level 3, and that receiver right here at level 1, because we didn't really affect this guy that much. The backer can carry him and he can play that guy, and we're not in good shape there. Like I said, we like this in the red zone, but how do we run it? We run it off of play action in the red zone. Play action in the red zone. What we try to do is we try to hold the underneath coverage, and put the stress on the, in other words, the more you get in the red zone, the more you work the horizontal stretches, because the vertical stretches start disappearing. Okay? So the more you get in the red zone, you work horizontal stretches, because the vertical stretches is disappearing. Okay? All right? Yeah.
Is your tight end reading the defense too, so he changes patterns depending upon what he sees coverage-wise or not?
Well, no, we don't tell the tight end. We give, actually, the tight end in some of our routes will have what we call a hot read, but very few times we really want him to be the hot route. The reason why is this. Number one is, when he catches the ball, he's usually not fast enough or elusive enough to get away from a guy who's just, running right on tackles him, you know what I'm saying? We're looking for a guy who can get separation. So normally what we do is we give our hot routes to our slots and sometimes our backs. The reason why is they have a little bit better ability to maybe some, now if we have a guy that has a really good ability to break tackles and stuff, then maybe we can say, all right, the tight end gets the ball. But the idea is that what you don't want is it's 3rd down and 7, they blitz you, and they know who your hot route is, they blitz you, and the guy catches the ball and he gets tackled 5 yards, 4th down punt. And that happens a lot. You see it in the NFL all the time. And the whole idea is that don't get in that situation. Don't get in that situation where you're throwing a hot to a guy who can't make the first down. I mean, you might give it to the back, you might get it 5 yards, but if he's a guy that is your fastest back, can get separation and do all that stuff. So what you try to do is get it back on, get it back on the linebacker and get some separation is what you try. That's what you're looking for. that's why, there's gonna be a rule in college football now because Idaho, scored, I think it was like 27 points or something, but they had 500 yards of offense versus LSU. And here's what they did. Pretty good thought. It's deception, but you can get away with it in college football until they make a rule. Here's the huddle. They run 3 guys off. One of them always being tight end. One of them's always a tight end. Okay? And on the sideline, 3 guys are running on. One of them's always a tight end. Okay? But, as they run here, and as these guys get here, he goes off, he goes on, he goes on, and he goes off. So what they end up doing is, they end up with, they're only really exchanging 2. They're only exchanging 2, but if you're in the box, you see a tight end, you go, oh, okay, it's going to be one tight end formation. But when they get halfway, the tight end came running out like this, he stops, now he's back in. So they're thinking, spread formation, now you got 2 tight ends, and that's not what they don't want to be in that. And then worse yet, they see the tight end, 2 tight ends run in. They do it a couple different combinations. They just see 2 tight ends run in, and then they see the receivers come off, and they exchange 1. So what they do is they either exchange, how they do it is they exchange 1, 2, or 3, and 3 is the natural exchange. You see 3 guys run in, now you know what the formation is, so they gotta bring 3 guys off. But you know what the formation is by the guys going in. 2 tight ends going in, 1 tight end going in, 1 tight end, 2 back, however it is. Because that defensive coordinator looks and says, okay, hey, send 2 tights. So he calls us, he's making his play call right now. But all of a sudden, one of the tight ends, and they can do it with just an exchange of 1. And that's all they did. And LSU was so screwed up, they couldn't get the right personnel in the game, so they just started calling base. Well, there was no blitzing, no whatever, because their kids were so confused. Because he was making